noise out there. So I'm going to be doing my darndest to keep us, make sure we have enough breaks that we can, take a breath every 50 minutes. So I'll try and be cognizant of that. Okay, so now what we're going to spend the rest of today on is the land of beliefs. We're going to now go into where we're going to begin is in identifying what is the structure of beliefs that Shireen is operating out of when she is working with these children. Now, I know she's got a lot of beliefs. We all got a lot of beliefs. She's got thousands of beliefs that are operating in this situation. We don't want to know all of them. What we want are just those essential ones, those that have the most to do with focusing her experience and her attention when she's operating in that situation, in that context. And so, in order to help us identify that, I've created a model, another model inside of this model, that we call the belief template. Belief template, you have handouts on that as well, looks like this. And what it identifies are what are the essential relationships, belief relationships that are operating in her experience when she's in that situation. Now, let's just mention what they are right now, and then we'll start taking this apart. So the belief template, at the heart, the center of the belief template is criterion. There's its definition. There's the evidence for that criterion. And then there are two cause effects, the enabling cause effect and the motivating cause effect. Now, of course, this doesn't capture everything that there is to know about her in terms of her beliefs. But what this does encompass or capture are what are the essential relationships that are operating to manifest her ability. So, now, there's also, in addition to this, there's another layer that we need to be talking about in order to kind of get going here. There's also the layer of the process of doing the modeling. You also have a handout that describes that process, so I need to talk a little bit about that before we can go into detail on this. Here we've got somebody who's got an ability. We could simply just start asking her questions and saying, well, how do you do this? What's important to you here? Why do you say that? And she's going to then be pulling this information out wherever she does out of her experience. Yeah? But we want to make sure that it's coming out of really appropriate examples. That her attention, when she's answering these questions, is focused, and we have a way to evaluate the information that we're getting. So the place to begin is to first ask her to think of and tell us about 3 examples of manifesting this behavior, manifesting this ability. So Shireen, so what are 3 examples of, if possible, recent examples, of your working with a child who is coming from a different culture and you were helping this child adapt?
Well, one example is the example of a 4-year-old boy
Mm-hmm.
who arrived at school, and he was Danish, and couldn't speak a word of English. And his first reaction was to back out from the classroom. He didn't want to go in. And the more his mother was pushing him to go in, the more he was aiming at the front door and wanting to run off.
Yeah.
So what I actually tried to do was to try and draw his attention to something that might interest him in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. And it worked?
It sort of worked. Because I had to use, obviously I had to use his mother as the interpreter. She had to translate to him. And he stormed into the classroom and started looking at things, and whatever he touched, he threw in the air. But to me, it didn't matter. I just let him, he had to have a go at whatever there was there. Maybe if I'd had a punching ball, he could have punched the punching ball,
Mm-hmm.
but it so happened that he used whatever he had. So I had a few blocks flying up in the air, and he took some pencils and threw them out, and I just observed him. I didn't say anything, and he was watching me.
Okay, all right. What's another example?
Another example is, so not of the same person, another?
No.
Okay. So another example is a little Korean girl who was supposed to have individual tuition, English tuition with me.
Mm-hmm.
And she would walk into the room and not say anything for the whole, well, this is the first session, for the whole of the first session. Not open her mouth. Just sit there and wait. And the aim that I actually set myself, sort of a goal, was to just get her to smile.
Mm-hmm.
So I synchronized with her, and I sat there, and I didn't say anything. So after a while, she started fidgeting, and I did the same thing as her. So when she realized I was imitating her, she started smiling, because she thought this was sort of a very curious way of learning English.
So now, with this Korean girl,
Yeah.
did you, through time, were you able to help her adapt
Yes,
with the Danish boy as well?
yes.
Okay, and another example.
Another example. Another example is another Danish boy who actually spent his first few sessions with me. He was in my class, and he was in tears all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the only, so obviously what he was seeking was attention, and what I did was I actually took him and gave him a big hug, because I noticed when he walked into the classroom, he was clinging to his daddy and he was hugging him.
Mm-hmm.
And daddy realized he shouldn't actually stay within the school, so he left the child, and the child was looking around, and there were other children. He was not alone in the classroom. And he was literally streaming, and I just came up to him and gave him a hug.
Mm-hmm.
And although he continued to cry, I felt his breathing synchronizing with my breathing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I felt he needed at that time.
Okay. All right. And with him, in time, we were able to
Yes.
help him adapt.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the reason I want to get these three examples out, there's a number of reasons. One is, first of all, this is a way for us to identify, verify that, what it she says she can do. So we get to hear examples of that. Another is that what I want to do is I want to bring into her consciousness and experience, her present consciousness and experience, some good examples that she can then draw off of when we start doing the elicitation. So they're right there for her. And then what the third reason is that we're now going to pick one of those examples as what I call the home example. This is the example that we're going to be primarily drawing the information from. And we use the other ones as ways to test the information that we've gathered. All right? So let's take this third boy, the Danish boy who was crying. All right? Okay. So now we begin. Okay, now we begin. Where I like to start is in the beliefs. The reason is that in my experience with people and how folks work, everything flows from the beliefs. That is that whatever structured beliefs a person is holding in a situation, that informs or organizes how they're thinking, how they're feeling, and how they behave. And it's not so much the other way around. These things can affect your belief at a moment in time, but in terms of what holds a system together, it's generally the beliefs. And we all have experiences that support this. If you've ever tried to just change your behavior in a way that doesn't fit with some underlying belief of yours, you know how well that works. It doesn't. You have to be constantly vigilant to hold on to that behavior. And as soon as you forget to hold on to that behavior, whatever beliefs you actually have, manifest how they usually do, right? So what I call the flow of effect is in this direction. That is, that beliefs have a much stronger impact on the system this way than anything in the system has on the beliefs. Okay, so that's my justification for this. So I want to know, this is where I like to start. I want to find out what's the foundation that everything else sits on in her experience. Okay, any questions about that? All right, so let's find out about it. Now, the first thing that we want to look for is what her criterion is. A criterion is what is most important to you at a moment in time or in a particular context or situation. That is, what do you want to have satisfied or fulfilled in a particular moment or situation? So, here you are in this training seminar. What's important to you? What's the criterion that you're wanting to satisfy or fulfill? Well, for a lot of us, it might be understanding or learning or usefulness. And what that means is you're holding that as a primary filter. You're evaluating everything that comes through with respect to it. If it's understanding, it's as though you're always asking, do I understand this? Do I understand this? Do I understand this? And as long as the answer is yes, things are fine. As soon as the answer is no, then all of a sudden, bleep, you start changing your strategy. Things start happening inside of you to try and bring about understanding. So that's your criterion. That's what's important to you and in this situation at this moment in time. If the situation changes, new criteria come up. So pretty soon, for instance, when we go out for lunch and you start going out, well, where are we going to eat? What's your criterion going to be? Is it going to be understanding? Probably not. It's probably going to be, what's fast, or what's healthy, or what's convenient, or what has a quiet ambiance, But the significance of criteria, and it's the most important thing you can learn about human beings, bar anything else. It is the most important thing you can learn about folks, is that we do have criteria, that anytime you move from one context to another, it calls up criteria in you, and that the criterion that you're holding will determine to the greatest extent what your experience is, where your attention is, and what your experience is. You go out looking for that restaurant, and what's important to you is you're looking for something that's healthy, then, as you go through and sort through one restaurant after another, you will eliminate some restaurants because they're not healthy and choose others because they are. The person that you're with, however, suppose they have a different criterion. They're looking for what's economical. And, they're looking at the McDonald's and they're going, great, perfect. I'll get out of there for under $5. Meanwhile, your response to it is, no way I'm going in there. That's not healthy. The significance of this is that you're both looking at the same restaurant. I hesitate to use the word restaurant. The same same source of food. You're both looking at the same source of food and having different experiences of it. Different responses to it, different experiences of it, and making different choices in relation to it. And it's not that it's any different, it's that the criterion that you're bringing to it is something that's different. Okay? That's the significance of criteria. Change criteria, you change everything. All right. Now, I know that when Shireen is faced with a child who's coming from a different culture, a child's being brought in from a different culture, and who is obviously not already adapted, that for her, something comes up as what's important in that situation. And that's where I want to start. That's what I want to find out, what that organizing principle, if you like, or criterion is. The way we do that is by asking the question. One way to ask this question. All right, so now I'm back to you. Sorry, I have to keep going back and forth, but you understand. So there you are with this Danish boy. What was his name?
Carl.
Carl? Oh, good, Carl. I don't want to call him Danish boy, Carl. Carl. So there you are with little Carl. He's brought in by his father.
That's right.
And Carl's in tears. All right. So there you are. He's being brought into your classroom. What's important to you?
That he feels comfortable.
He feels comfortable.
Yes.
Well, here we go. Criterion. He feels comfortable. Now, this is an example. Imagine what I want all of us to do, this is what I'm doing, is I'm now stepping into that situation myself. I'm imagining there I am as a teacher in a classroom, and little Carl is being brought in by his father, and Carl is crying. And I'm now making my criterion, that is, I'm holding as my primary filter, that what's important to me is that he is comfortable. And I'm finding out how does that affect my experience and my thinking and what I do and how I respond. Does it seem to work? Does it seem to support or take me towards having that ability of helping him adapt? Does it seem congruent? Yeah? Yeah, it does to me too. Now, it may turn out from gathering more information that, oh, that's not quite right, we've got to change it, that's okay. But at this, what the point is, at this right now, is that what I want each of us to begin to do is that as you gather information, you need to be testing it in your own experience. That's where you test the information you gather, is in you. Remember, what I want to do is I want to be able to do what she does. So how do I know when I've got the model? When I can do what she does. How do I know whether the information I'm getting is useful? Does it help me do what she does? So that's where you need to test it. You step into the situation, you try it out in you, and find out, does it support the ability? All right? Now, and you could see, for instance, suppose instead in that same situation, there you are, teacher, little Carl is brought in crying by his father, and what's important to you is being professional. Or I'll be making it loaded even more, appearing professional. Would that change how you respond in that situation?
Yes.
Immediately your thinking changes, how you would feel changes, how you would behave would change, wouldn't it? Now let's change it again. Now what's important to you is having control. Different again, isn't it? That's the significance of criteria. I really want you to get one. If you get nothing else from these 3 days, it is, I hope it will be, how powerful criteria are. As soon as the criteria change, everything else changes. The linchpin or the beating heart. To me, I think of it as the beating heart of any ability. What is the criterion? All right. So right now, as I understand it, what the beating heart is that, that the child feels comfortable. So now, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Now I want to check it with those, remember those other examples? Now now we're going to use those. So now if we go back to the other Danish boy who came in, who was angry, when he came in, what was important to you? Was it also that he's comfortable?
Not exactly.
What was it?
It was more that he felt secure.
He felt secure.
Yes.
All right. Now, okay, that he felt secure. Now, let me just write notes. All right. Now, and then there was a little Korean girl
Yes.
who she came in and she wouldn't talk.
Yes.
Right. When you're sitting with her, what was important to you?
That she felt comfortable in front of me.
That she felt comfortable in
Yes.
front of you.
Yeah.
All right. Now, so how do we make sense out of this?
Anger seems to change. She seems to be have an empathy for the level of emotions that the children are going.
She certainly does. She certainly does. But how do we make sense out of, because what we want to do, we want to fill in our boxes. Like good human beings, we want to fill in our boxes. We got a box here to fill in. We want to identify what the criterion is. Yeah? So we started out, well, it's important that he feels comfortable. We checked it with another one, it was secure, and the third one, it was that she feel comfortable. So what does that mean? Does that mean that, here are some of the possibilities. It could mean that this example is not an example of the ability. That's one choice. I don't think that's the case in this. That's not the situation here. Okay? But I want you to know that that's a possibility. The person may have come up with what they think is an example of the ability, but it turns out it's actually something different. All right? That's one possibility. Another possibility is that the person is using different words to express the same thing. That's another possibility. Okay? And that is possible here. So for instance, and we could say, well, to you, the way I would find out is being secure and comfortable, is that the same thing to you? Does that mean the same?
I guess it does. It's just it's a different context, if I might say. But
Yeah,
yes.
okay, so
Yeah.
she's begrudgingly saying yes. So I don't like that. I don't want to see her over there begrudgingly saying yes to me. So that brings us to the third possibility, which is what I suspect this is, which is that that it is being comfortable is what's important. And in this particular case, security is what this child needs in order to be comfortable. That's what it means. That's what's necessary for this child to be comfortable. that she's always going, what does this child need to be comfortable in order to be comfortable? For him, it's security. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Do you guys follow me? So, I would then say that really what is important is that they feel comfortable. What that means will vary from child to child. All right? Good. Now that takes us, that segues right to the next part, because we now know what's important to her, but what is it? What does it mean to be comfortable? What are we talking about when we mean comfortable? Is like, being comfortable is like, I want all my kids to be like this. Is that what being comfortable is? And I don't know what it is. We need to find out. That is, we need to get the definition of what being comfortable is. The reason this is absolutely essential is that each one of us can have our own ideas, will have our own ideas about what it means to be comfortable. If yours happens to match hers, fine, you got lucky. If it doesn't, and you don't know that, and you operate out of your idea about what comfortable means, you won't actually be operating out of her criteria. Because what criteria are labels for an experience. When you say, I want to understand, understanding is a label for a certain kind of experience you want to have. When you say, I want to be, I want to be joyful in my work, that's a label for a certain kind of experience that you want to have. And that particular experience might be different for you than it is for somebody else.